They say there's no superstars in Carolina, but there is one in Sebastian Aho. But I think there's a second one that we really need to talk about. And some could say he is very Jarvalicious.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday episode of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week or 3 days a week since we're in the off season, and we are with the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I am the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I do a weekly Chicago Wolves column called Wolves Weekly. I am the co-host of the SurgeCast, which is a weekly, more so bi-weekly, with also the offseason going on at the SurgeCast, which is a very fun show you guys need to check out, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very fun show for you guys today. Got a great guest that I'm very excited to have on. We get to talk about Seth Jarvis and who could be surprising breakouts coming out of camp. But before we get into all of that stuff, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like you want them to, especially since there really is no playoffs and we're in the middle of no hockey as of right now, but we are very, very close to that. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone. Every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, enough about me. We got to talk about our very special guest. I'm very excited to have her on. She's actually part of the SurgeCast. 1/3 of it was actually the first co-host of that show. Very excited to have her on. It is one Miss Bailey Curtis. Bailey, how are you doing tonight? And thank you for joining me on this latest edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
It's like I haven't talked to you in forever. It's been it's like we don't talk on a bi-weekly podcast. It's crazy.
Yeah. Usually it's like bi-weekly, weekly during the season. Yeah, and we just how many episodes at this point for the SurgeCast? But yeah, right. No, it's good. It's definitely good to have you on. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Just trying to get the feet wet over here at Locked On. And all that, of course, gotta get
all that giving you grief about running a second podcast, and you're kind enough to bring me on, so I appreciate it.
Well, more so is you're fine. It's more so Kat, where it's just like, oh, he writes. It's like, yes, but no, like I said, thank you so much for coming on. I know it's kind of like last minute, but it's like we've had great guests all this week. We've had Brad and Ray from the Storm Cellar, Nick from Canes Prospects. That was a lot of fun. Last week we had Ardo Cal. Week before that, it was like Corey Laviolette and Mike Maniscalco. So honestly, the
really slow over here, huh?
Yeah, just a little bit. Since we're trying to get through the dog days of summer with no Hurricanes news going on, unless it's like here's a Martin Nietzsche deal, and it's been like 3 weeks. So
do something.
It's been a bit for sure though, but yeah, because I know we talked about it on the other podcasts and stuff like that, but I think we have to talk about the one guy that's still kind of out there that still isn't signed, Jen. That's one Seth Jarvis. And the same thing I talked with Corey Laviolette was it's okay. It's got to get done. It's just how is this contract going to be, formed? Is it a bridge? Is he give him all the money now? And, we'll talk about extensions and all that stuff. But I do think there's a very good topic we have to talk about. And I wrote an article for the Hockey Writers, and make sure to go check that out if you guys haven't. I'll leave a link in the description. But it talks about how he has the potential of getting into the top 30 all-time in points for the Hurricanes this year. He's at 146. He's actually only 4 points behind 50th place in the you wouldn't believe who's in 50th all-time in points for the Hurricanes.
Do tell.
Bates Battaglia. He's number 50.
Baby.
Yep, he's got 150 points. But then I'm thinking about okay, how high could he get on this list? And I looked at the numbers. If he gets 64 points this year, he'll actually tie for 30th. But if it's 65, he'll be the new number 30 all-time in points. And we're talking 4 seasons. His first 4 seasons, he get at the top 30 for the Hurricanes.
You got to think this kid's what, 23 years old, 22 years old?
22 years old.
22 years
He's
old.
already 51st in points with 146. It potentially has a shot for top 30 with a 65-point season.
To even put him in this conversation, for him to propel himself into this kind of conversation at 22 years old, 4 seasons, is incredible. Is insane.
3 full seasons. 3 full seasons isn't that it? Like he's going into season 4. Mm-hmm. He's already where he's at now.
Now, I mean, there's talks to be had about, superstar status. And I know that was one of the bigger topics for today. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot that needs to be done in order to get to that point, I think. Mm-hmm. I think even with getting to number 30 on that list, there's maybe still a little bit to go. Right. But honestly, and we've talked about this a lot before, though, too, is that the sky's the limit for this kid. He's got so much going for him. You think about his career season last year that he played with a torn labrum
and a rotator cuff.
And rotator cuff.
And broke his finger in the playoffs.
I think it was a torn labrum. Yeah.
It was a labrum and a rotator cuff. It was both. It was both.
Okay. I'm making sure that I got that right in my brain. He did that with all of the injuries plaguing him, continued to propel himself into a career season.
Yeah.
And that's not his best. That's not 100% Seth Jarvis.
Yeah. It's crazy when you look at it, too. It's that he did it in game 15. He gets hurt. You're talking he plays another 60-plus games, leads the team in power play goals with 13, tied the team lead in shorthand goals with Jacob Slavin. Who would have saw that coming, at least from Jacob Slavin? And then he goes into the playoffs, leads the team in goals with 5 in the playoffs. Oh, yeah, and he broke his finger in the Islanders series. Like, no one even noticed that his hand was bothering him. Yeah, and the fact that, like, going through the whole process that Seth Jarvis even says, like, just knowing that I can play through that just gave me more motivation to just keep playing and still succeed. And it's like, just the confidence in this kid to be like, yeah, I know I'm hurt, but I can still play really high competitive hockey and still produce.
Well, like, it's easy. It's easy when you've got role models like Sebastian Aho and Jacob Slavin and Jordan Stahl, and
Rod Brindamore.
No biggie.
Yeah,
to sit there and look up to and kind of provide that motivational kind of, I guess, idolism for and that's exactly what he needs, is that at that age too, is somebody he can look up to, somebody who's going to sit there and set an example for him. Like, yeah, you'll get hurt, but that doesn't have to be the end of that.
Right.
So
yeah, it's just the thing about the fact that he wasn't even 100%, still had a career year where you got 33 goals, 34 assists for 67 points. Yeah, so that's coming off a down year where everyone's kind of like, okay, is he going to be a good player? Like, I know a lot of people on social media are like, oh, is it worth trading him and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but you look at his second season, like, oh, it was a sophomore slump. It's like he had 1 less point than his rookie year. But you look at what he was doing, it was a lot of working on his defense, working on his 200-foot game. And he even said after that season too, he was, I need to bulk up, I need to get stronger and stuff like that. And he did. And now you see all the work that he did as his 200-foot game went on and got better with, also bulking up too, and being able to play on first line minutes almost all last year. Even played some third line with the Jordans and reignited that line at one point. And having a career year, it's like he's been put in every situation by Rod Brindamore now. Is the fact that it's like, power play, go. Penalty kill, go. Defensive side of the ice, no big deal. Offensive side, oh, you need to take some face-offs too? Okay. Like, he's put himself into a spot where he can play in any certain situation, and Rod Brind'Amore's like, I can throw this kid out, no problem.
And I will say, after watching him his first ever season, I don't think I could have seen myself back then sitting there and saying, oh, yeah, put this kid in a defensive position, because, that was not fun to watch. And I think he would say the same exact thing, which it kind of leads me into my point in saying, I mean, yeah, he had a sophomore slump. I think a lot of players will sit there and unapologetically say, yeah, no, this year maybe wasn't great for me. Yeah. But look at what I learned from that year too. Look at what I spent that year doing. knowing that I need to bulk up, knowing that I need to better my defensive game, knowing that I need to better myself in the faceoff dot, knowing that I need to increase chemistry with core players that I know are going to be here forever, knowing that I need to, maybe work on my wrist shot, work on my slap shot, work on penalty kill, power play, whatever it needs to be. It doesn't matter if you had that sophomore slump. It's what you do after that, and knowing that, that's where you're going from here,
Yeah, no, right, exactly. And that's where you see the trajectory of he works on, rookie season. Okay, this kid broke out of camp, surprised everyone, thought he was going to go back to Portland in the WHL. Doesn't, sticks around, has a pretty good season overall, other than the fact that you played a lot of third line minutes, which is very surprising for a rookie and stuff like that. And then sophomore year, a little bit down, but like we both said, working on his defensive game, making himself better, being a more reliable 200-foot player.
Mm-hmm.
Last year has a career year, absolutely kills it. Rod can trust him. And the fact that he did this hurt almost all season, just absolutely, like I said, for the fact that he had 13 power play goals and 2 shorties, and was actually at one point leading the team in goals until, Sebastian Aho decided to Sebastian Aho.
Mm-hmm.
But it speaks a lot for just the growth that this kid's had, and the fact that it's an absolute steal at 13. Like, who would have thought that Seth Jarvis at 13 is like, yeah, he's going to be like 3rd in all-time points for that draft class.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, yeah, he has to go top 5 now if you redraft it. It's like, well, good thing we're not, and thank you, Toronto.
Yeah.
Thank you, Toronto, for the 13th overall pick for Patrick Marleau in facilitating that.
You can have him. We'll take our Seth Jarvis. That's fine.
Yeah, and superstar, yeah, you could maybe say it's a little bit of a stretch right now, but I would say this right now, that he's already hit star status. In my opinion, I think he's already a star player.
Star status is, I think, not the topic of conversation, though.
No.
It's no doubt that this kid is a star. This kid has the potential to be a superstar. I think he's already hit that with the potential that we've seen him and the trajectory, the amount of growth that he's had in 4 seasons at his age. Absolutely.
Yeah, and when you see the fact that almost every podcast around the hockey world has pretty much almost had him on at this point, you're like, and it's just the personality is already there. The social media presence of him acting like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to cool off. And he's like, oh, I don't drink beer, and he's literally on Instagram.
Oh, I don't drink. It's an all-timer.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh yeah, how do you feel about the fans trying to vote you to the All-Star game? Well, sorry, no, I can't. I already got my trip booked.
Not a refundable ticket.
Yeah, and he's like, I appreciate it, but no. And then of course he's in Finland over the summer, going to Sebastian Aho's wedding. Just tearing up Finland, and just Barry Cook in the end. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, just yeah. So it's just the fact of like how he is as a person off the ice, and then just being able to go on the ice and just have a season where you're just like, okay, this kid has made a presence, and I agree. Like we both said, star status checked off. I would say going into season 4, if he does it again where you get another 65 plus point season and you put yourself 30th all time, then I would say, yeah, you've pretty much hit superstar status. And I would say even if you hit 70 or more, yeah, solidified, done. Like you've booked it. And of course, a lot of people say, oh, that's Carolina, there's no superstars there. It's like, okay, well, you keep overlooking Sebastian Aho and look what he's done.
We've been preaching this for years, and finally people are starting to realize how good of a player Sebastian Aho is.
Yeah.
The Finnish one, mind you.
Yeah.
The Finnish one, ours.
Yes. Yeah. Not the defenseman who's, I don't even know where he's at now. He was with the Islanders. I don't know where he's at now at this point. But it's, like I said, is he a superstar? I think his trajectory is very, very close to putting him there. I think, like I said, if his 4th season passes his 67 points, let's say he gets 70, done. I would put superstar down, stamp it, you're good to go, you're done. There's nothing else to talk about.
I think there's a little bit more expectation, I think, for other people too. I think it took a while for Sebastian Aho to get to that point. And I think as much as I would love to put Seth Jarvis there after next season, I think there's a few more milestones he's got to hit. And I think there's the ability for him to kind of hit that. I think there's something to be said about him being 22 years old and him having not hit his prime yet. And there's a lot more to go on there. For me, I want to give him maybe 1 or 2 40-goal seasons before I kind of start having that conversation and putting that label on him a little bit more. But that's just me.
No, I mean, that's fair. I mean, like you said, you had 33 goals.
It's not like he's far. So that's just where I'm at.
No, I mean, which is fair. For me, it's like for the trajectory of where he's at and the fact that it's going into season 4. If he does it again like we did in his sophomore year or in his junior year, I guess if you want to look at it that way. And let's say maybe he's almost right there. Let's see what he does in his 5th season. And then he does it again where you're on the precipice of hitting top 20 all-time in points in your first 5 seasons in the league. Yeah, I think when you go 3 seasons in a row of 65 plus and you've put yourself into that top 20 range, like 21, 22, and you're within the striking distance of the top 20 all time in franchise history. Yeah, I think you've pretty much like done sealed
nail
it.
On the head.
Yeah. So maybe it's like I said, I'm giving maybe a year sooner than what people think it would be. Maybe, yeah, let's say it's 5 seasons. He's locked it in. But if he has a stellar season like this year where he gets 40 plus goals, let's say he hits 70, 75, let's say even hits 80 points, because he's going to be on the line with Sebastian and Andrei Svechnikov and power play 1, probably the penalty kill 1 or 2. Just saying, man, if he does it again this year, conversations are really going to be made here.
Yeah, no, go ahead and lock it in for me. I could see 2 years. It probably won't be 3 or 4. Probably won't be till 3 or 4 in my head.
Yeah, so it's either going to be the end of the 24-25 season or the end of 25-26, where it's like, yeah, Seth Jarvis is a bona fide superstar. Thank you, Toronto Maple Leafs, for giving us that pick to pick him up and all that stuff. Right. But before we actually have to talk about a 24-25 season with Seth Jarvis, there's a contract that needs to get taken care of because he's still a restricted free agent, the only guy that still isn't signed by the Hurricanes. Mm-hmm. And we will actually go over potential extension deals with Seth Jarvis here in a little bit on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. All right, guys, we got to talk about FanDuel. And I know just like you, I love sports. And I love them so much, I never want them to stop, especially hockey. Believe me, hockey is pretty much what it is right to be now as a huge fan of the Hurricanes and just hockey in general. But since we are in the middle of the dog days of summer, there's no hockey going on right now. The sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But with FanDuel, it lets us keep the sports going whenever we want because all we have to do is open up the app and dream of bets anytime that we are in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So if you're into MLB, NWSL, NASCAR, WNBA, anything you can think of, golf, you can make bets right now to take care of that until hockey season does come back around. Thankfully, with training camps just less than a month away. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So at the end of segment 1, we were talking about Seth Jarvis and how he could be on the precipice of being a superstar player. Hopefully end of season 4, maybe end of season 5, but who knows? That'll be very, very interesting to keep our eyes on for that. But before we actually have to talk about a 4th season for Seth Jarvis, there is a little thing called a contract extension that we are still waiting on because the technically has until December 1st to sign with the team.
I don't think it's going to take that long.
No, because I know Eric Tulsky and Darren York and everyone else doesn't want that to happen. And let's be honest, Seth Jarvis doesn't want that to happen as well because this kid loves hockey outside of naps. He loves hockey. And I talked to Corey Laviolette. So I thought like time is so screwy for me. I thought this was like last week. No, this was August 2nd. This was like 2 weeks ago that I talked to Corey Laviolette. I'm like, what is time? Time is a wibbly wobbly.
Time's a construct.
Yeah. It's quoting Doctor Who. It's just stuff.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Yeah, stuff. And it's just one of those things where it's going to get done. Everyone needs to relax. The deal is, we know there's going to be a deal done with Seth Jarvis. It's Absolutely. Just with the cap potentially going up to 90 million, maybe 100 within 2 or 3 seasons. Maybe it's a potential bridge deal. Like, okay, let's just bet, like Seth Jarvis bets on himself. And then when the cap goes up, all right, here's 8.5 to 9 million plus and go from there. Or it's a somewhat bridge deal that it's enough to where it's like, it's just a deal that's going to work for 5 seasons. Or do you give him the 8x8 now and then circle back around for another contract later on, even when it could be more and stuff like that? So it comes down to what the Hurricanes want and what Seth Jarvis wants. Does he want to bet on himself, or does he just want to get the money getting taken care of now and not even worry about it? So, I mean, Billy, what are your feelings on, like, what do you think could potentially be that deal that could work? Like, because at this point, it's anyone's guess of what a deal could look like right now, especially with the cap situation of going up at some point soon.
And I'll go ahead and take this time to remind everybody that Seth is not worried about this. No. I don't think this is anything that is sitting on the forefront of this kid's mind. This is a guy who, in an interview this past season, was like, don't worry about me. There's like a million other people that we have to take care of before my contract gets done.
And and he's the last one to get done. So I think we're good.
It's holding true. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it come in, tomorrow, but
right. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of logistics that kind of go into this. And I'll go ahead and do my shameless the SurgeCast plug here. And saying, if you are not already, go ahead and listen, or not already planning to, go ahead and listen to tomorrow's episode. We've got a great guest and president of the Carolina Hurricanes, Doug Worf, joining the episode. And one of the things we did talk about was, Seth Jarvis and what that looks like. And he basically, the short of it all is there's no rush. We've got till October. Till they are even, that kind of thing needs to be done. And they're hoping to start the season with him. It's nothing that they're rushing though. And there are talks of, that cap going up. He specifically mentioned looking at the amount of cap that we're going to have to play around with come the post 25 season. And
there's a lot of names coming, Dmitry Orlov and Brent Burns, and think of all the other UFAs are going to be available next summer too. Oh my goodness, that list is. Yeah. Whew.
So I think there's something to be said about a contract manipulation potentially, and that could kind of come into play to give him maybe a little bit more money than he might be vying for. Give him maybe kind of a shorter or a smaller kind of AAV this upcoming year, and try to manipulate that to kind of reflect the amount of cap that they'll have next season and beyond, and focusing there. I honestly don't see Seth being super, super greedy with this, no. even with an agent who really is going to be pushing for him to kind of realize his stardom and realize the kind of player that he is capable of. I could absolutely see this being a bridge deal situation. I personally, and I could be vastly wrong about this, I don't see it going anywhere above 5 years. I honestly could see him kind of playing around with a certain AAV, kind of get a bigger feel for things, realize, okay, I've gotten on this trajectory. I know I'm a better player. Where does that fit me in on the team now?
Right.
Where does that fit me in coming, into a huge re-signing period next summer, where we will have, we already have a bunch of new guys now. What is that going to look like down the road? How do I fit in, given that.
Right.
So that, and don't even like, I couldn't even try to give you a number on what that AAV looks like for that kind of contract, because it could be anybody's guess, especially, you know, repeating and considering that this is one of the most selfless guys I've ever seen on a hockey team. So,
well, I mean, you're looking at a situation where it's like, I know per Puckpedia, which great website, by the way, if anyone's there, check them out. They have the Hurricanes at $6.44 million. Caveat with that is, though, you've got Morrow and Jost and Robinson and a bunch of other these guys who may not be on the roster next year, so they haven't really figured that out. But if you go to Puck GM, kind of move some contracts around, the Hurricanes technically would have $8.2 million left in cap space without signing Seth Jarvis. And I'm like, 3-4 years, 6.5, wouldn't be a bad deal. Honestly, they'll still leave you some room if you need to figure something else out too. But it's still a pretty decent AAV, all things considered. So yeah, it could be anything between say 4 to 6.5. I mean, I
probably see it nearing closer to 6, somewhere between 5 and 6, personally. But that's all the guessing that I'm doing.
Pretty much. I mean, we all would love to have a Jacob Slavin where he's like, I'll take 6.4, something behind it because it's just Jacob Slavin.
Yeah, you get like a few $1 million discount. Thanks.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where no one really knows where you're at right now, and like I said, it's going to get done. I think it's going to be a bridge deal too, just to be like, all right, let's just kick the can down the road of a longer extension when the cap goes up and. You know, kind of figure out the defense for next year too, because there's gonna be 2 big names with huge contracts coming off the books.
And there's something.
Freddie's too, and Freddie's contract also comes off.
This is true.
Mm-hmm.
There is also something to be said too about, you know, this kid's gonna be a Hurricane for a long time, so it doesn't matter how that happens. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's worried about how that happens. I just know that, especially with Sebastian Aho having a good few more years left with us with that new 8-year contract, that Seth will want to stay here for at least that long, if not longer.
Yeah, and Andrei Svechnikov, and I think it's year 2
of his 8. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then just Kotkaniemi's long contract as well. Pierre Kochekov's going to year 2 of his 4. I mean, we also just got Sean Walker, where he's got a 5-year deal. Oh, and Jalen Chatfield.
So excited for that.
Let's see. Shane Gostisbehere for his 3, Jalen Chatfield for his 3. So if you really look at it for the next at least 3 seasons, and that's even kicking in Jacob Slavin's new contract that starts next year, you have like 4-year defensemen locked up for at least 2 seasons with Chatfield, Shane Gostisbehere, Walker, and Slavin.
Yep.
And then you got the forwards who are locked in for a while. And I think Jordan Stahl's new contract kicks in or has it already kicked in, or it starts to kick in this year with his 4-year contract?
It's too many contracts to worry about this offseason.
Which one are we talking about?
My brain has turned to mush.
Yeah, but it's going to get done. I'm not worried about it. It's like what Corey said. It's just about how you want to structure, and does Seth want to bet on himself, or they want to get the long AAV extension done now in 8 years and move it down the road, because by then he'll be 30, and then it's like, okay, here's a short little 4 or 5 year deal. You're a Hurricane for life. So honestly, I'm not worried about it. It's just you would like to get it done. The Hurricanes want to get it done. Seth wants to get it done because I don't think he wants to miss any type of hockey, since we are pretty much a month-ish, maybe less away from training camp. Not really worried about it. So pump the brake, guys. Nothing to worry about.
Just know if anything is going to put you at ease, and I'm still struggling with it, and I just talked with the man a few hours ago, but if somebody from the inside of the Hurricanes is saying there is literally no rush, it's going to get done, don't worry about it. That should ease you guys. So
yeah, and we're not even talking about the fact that like Mike Maniscalco said it's going to be okay. Corey Laviolette said it's going to be okay.
You got the literal president of the Hurricanes, guys, telling you no rush. It's fine.
It's good.
We're good.
Yeah, we're good here. All right, so enough about Mr. Seth Jarvis. We all know what's going to happen. He's going to be a Hurricane, and it's going to be fun watching him just do his thing. Fully healthy. I think there's a big season incoming for him and stuff like that too. So
absolutely.
But speaking of Seth Jarvis and the impact he's had on the Hurricanes, I'm kind of curious to see who could be the next potential surprise breakout player in camp this summer. So I guess you're going to have to stick around for a little bit for our next segment as we get to figure out who that might be. So make sure to stick around here for a segment 3 on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, especially in this economy. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to a segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So at the end of segment 2, we kind of teased a little bit about how Seth Jarvis surprised everyone and broke out of, training camp back in the 2021-22 season, which I can't believe it's been that long already. Because no one knew if he was going to be with the Hurricanes for his 10 games, and then would he stay after? Would he go back to Portland for the Winterhawks in the WHL? And we all know what happened. He stayed, had a pretty decent rookie season, and now he's going to his 4th year and making some big aspirations for the Carolina Hurricanes. So that begs the question, and Bailey, I'm kind of curious to see who you think might be the next Seth Jarvis to come out of camp, because I had Nick from Canes Prospect on Wednesday. We had some very good discussions about a lot of players: Jackson Blake, Felix Unger-Sorum, Bradley Nadeau, Scott Morrow. Unfortunately, Alexander Keisha is not a reliable option because it's the fact that he's still under contract for 1 more year. So wait, 2025. It's okay. It's okay. It's gonna be fine.
2025.
Yes.
That is what they said. Spring of 2025. As soon as his contract.
Maybe because the playoffs do end around May for them, and that's an early exit. So
even if we're only seeing them for like a few games at the end of the season, like that's fine.
If not fall of 25, which is still fine too. So
that's still 2025, guys.
Yeah. But so let me ask you, Billy, who do you think probably has the best chance to pull a Seth Jarvis, surprise everyone coming out of camp and making the roster for opening night on October 11th against the Tampa Bay Lightning for a home-and-home back-to-back?
Oh gosh, I'm foaming at the mouth already, waiting for opening night. I honestly, and it's an easy answer in my mind, but it's hard to think about given, how stacked this roster already is. And this is without Jesper Fast in the
no
lineup
updates
too, with no updates. He is out of his brace. We know that much. But there's, we've heard talks that, he could miss opening night. So there's that to be considered. If you're talking about a guy to break into a wing position to kind of replace what we're losing in Jesper Fast, my first guess is Felix Unger-Sorum. Seeing what that kid is capable of, seeing, he's got size on his side. There's nothing to kind of worry about there. I mean, 5'11" for a wing is not bad at all. He could weight. He's doing okay. He could kind of stand to maybe bulk up a little bit, but under guys like Rod and
Burnsy and Stahl,
there's nothing to be worried about there. But just seeing what this kid was capable of in highlight reels and things like that, and seeing what how impressive he was in not only development camp, but in training camp last year. And seeing it, like, this is a kid who almost could, like, if he had broken the roster last year, I would not have been surprised because he had that much potential. Next on my list is Nadeau. Which I feel like is a bit of a no-brainer for certain people. But if I had to make my guess on the most likely prospect to kind of break out of that prospect pool, it's likely going to be Felix Ungersorum for me.
No, and that's totally fair. And Ungersorum does have a legitimate shot. For me, it's kind of like you're coming over to North America for your first time, for your first professional season over here. You're getting a head coach in Cam Abbott for the Chicago Wolves, who coached at Rogla BK in the SHL. And you've seen the laundry list of guys that he's taught over there that is in the NHL right now. We're talking Maurice Sider, Niles Hoglander, and a bunch of other guys that, we can go on for days about. It wouldn't be a bad option to kind of give him some time and get some, his feet wet and kind of understand the North American game a little bit more and trying to fit into which I think is a good possibility. And even then, you could be looking at like a Jack Rossovic as the third right wing, just to have someone there, and then maybe Brandon Lemieux or Eric Robinson taking that fourth right wing spot, just because the fact that we need someone there too. So, and this is what I talked to Nick about, and me and him were kind of almost vibing on the same page. Because if you're looking at the roster, how it's set up perfectly for a winger to come in, especially if you're talking a top six winger, Bradley Nadeau, he's my number one guy right now. I think if you're talking any four, like for me, and I did a top 5 Hurricanes prospects list, which I'll link in the description as well. It's like you look at where everyone's at, and it's of course 3 through 5 you can kind of interchange. That's Felix Ungersorum, Jackson Blake, Scott Moore. You can kind of mix and match those 3 guys together. But for me, if you're talking a guy who's in another tier by himself in the forward core, I think it's Bradley Nadeau. NHL plus shot already. This kid already has a deceptive shot that will fool a lot of defenses, fool goalies. He's got the speed. He's got the IQ. He's got the awareness. You see everywhere he's gone. Talking way back in like the triple 16s in Canada, BCHL at Penticton, he absolutely just kills it his last year with his brother. I think it was like 114 points in like 50-something games. Goes to Maine. Probably has the best season for a Maine Black Bear since like the mid-2000s. Goals, assists, points. Even in the playoffs, he did really well. I think it was like a plus 20, I want to say, in his last year. And the fact that he's already signed after his freshman year. And it's kind of very surprising everyone where he's at. And Corey Laviolette even said, this dude is an NHL plus shot. He is someone who really could have a shot of getting into this roster. And like I said, talking to Nick about it, we're both on the same page of like, if this roster is tailor-made to have someone just slide in right now that could make some impacts with the team, Bradley Nadeau, I think, is that guy. Then, of course, number one in terms of all prospects, Alexander Nikishin. This dude is just on a stratosphere of just how good he is. But
you're talking about a guy who is already considered one of the top, if not the top defenseman in the KHL.
Back-to-back seasons of leading all defensemen in the KHL with points. That's with 55 and then 56. Already considered like top 10 in the KHL in general.
Yeah.
And he's also 22. So he is also 22. So like Nikishin's on his own stratosphere. I think for the forward core, I think Ungersorum would be really good. It's kind of tough to see them sliding him into like a fourth line spot, third line maybe. I don't know. And like I said, you're coming over from Sweden. You never really played on North American ice. Maybe it's a good thing to try to get you kind of used to the game down here. Could he have a chance to do it? Possibly. But Brad Brind'Amour doesn't really throw in 2 rookies at the same time.
No. And I don't see this year being any different in regards to that, especially, like I mentioned before we kind of got into the whole blurb of everything, is that how stacked the roster looks. We've signed a few different guys who are not only AHL eligible, but have those 2-way contracts, can be NHL eligible. And we have a lot of spots to fill. And we have a few spots to fill and a few guys who are eligible to fill those spots already without bringing those prospects in. So exactly. There's something to be said. Eric Tulsi did mention, we are looking for some of the younger guys to step up. It's just a matter of, okay, how many younger guys is that? And I don't think it's going to be more than 1 or 2, because Rod has already lost a good portion of the chemistry that we had on this roster in guys like Teuvo Teravainen. You're losing a net front presence like in Stefan Nason. So you're looking for guys who are kind of already aware of the system and don't, or at least a NHL system. And it like that's just a lot more to teach, a lot more to kind of help fit in. Rather than, having the veterans be able to kind of take the reins a little bit and, hey, let me teach you, as opposed to 5 other guys,
Yeah, well, like with Corey Laviolette, and I kind of agree with him too. Seth Jarvis really put himself out there as a net front presence guy last year, so that's someone who really could make that case for Steph Nason. Also, don't forget William Carrier. He's a analytical darling for the 4th line, net front presence guy, in the most interesting contract I've ever seen for 6 years at $2 million apiece. That is going to be very interesting to keep an eye on. But yeah, I would say 1 or 2, but I could see them throwing in Eric Robinson in the 4th line somewhere. Jack Rossovic is your 3rd line guy. Brendan Lemieux, he could sit on the 4th line, could be in your press box. Defense, Ty Smith could be your 7th defenseman. Riley Stillman possibly too, because he's got some experience with Buffalo and the Rochester Americans. Son of Corey Stillman, which you got a lot of the connection. And he's going to wear 61, so even more 06 connections.
Talking about connections too, if we're still looking at the prospect pool, Bradley Nadeau's brother might be something he's an invite. He was an invitee to development camp this past summer, but there's a lot of prospect connections there too for the Wolves coming up. Yeah.
There's, and that's with defense. Do you really want to bring in Scott Moore or one of those guys to get 7th minutes? They're going to be top pairing in Chicago.
If you can keep him developing in the NCAA, I don't see any reason to disrupt that.
He signed an ELC. He's going to Chicago.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I totally forgot about that. Again, mush.
Yeah, he played I think 2 games at the end of the season last year.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's more than likely he's going to be in Chicago, and honestly, top defensive pair minutes, it makes sense because we're going to break into the 6 defensive spots where they're pretty much locked in with the guys we got now. It just makes sense to keep him down there. Jackson Blake, I think he has the potential of being like that perfect mold for a Rod Brind'Amour system. Maybe 3rd line because he's a good top 9 player. Do you want to see him possibly making the roster too? Hobey Baker winner, absolutely I think it was over 112 points in like 70-something games for North Dakota. Hobey Baker finalist, okay.
Okay, yeah.
60 points last year, no big deal, but yeah.
I guess the point I guess I was trying to make is I guess I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to mess with development if you don't have to. If it's not broken, don't fix it unless there is a real true chance that you're pulling him in and you're sitting him in the press box, but he has capabilities to play actual minutes. Don't mess with development if you don't have to, because there's a lot of connection between coaching staff and playing systems and things like that these guys can really learn from.
Yeah.
And it's better if you can do that in an area where, they are getting playing minutes. They are able to kind of sit there and hone their skills in an actual game setting versus just sitting and watching from club level or whatever it might be.
For sure. Yeah,
So,
the
last thing we need is to become a Montreal Canadiens type play, and with some development woes.
Yeah, I
So.
definitely don't need that. Or the New York Rangers when it comes to Capo Caco and Lafreniere's finally coming into his own. But yeah, it'll be very interesting. Like I said, I agree. I think we're going to at least get one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how the roster's set up right now, if Jesper Fossil's already coming back in, and you kind of are just, do you figure out your fourth line right wing, or if you put Jack Roslovic in your top 9, then it's like maybe you could see someone on the right side if they really want to go down that path. But right now, as it stands, let's say Jack is your third line right wing, Lemieux or Robinson's your fourth line right winger, and you got that top 6 spot open on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be upset if it's Bradley Nadeau if he comes out and shows out and proves what he's already done wherever he's been. The dude can score. So
there is something to be said though about handedness as well. And Bradley is a natural left.
Mm-hmm.
He is a left wing. So there is something to be said about playing the offhand too. Now again, my pick, Felix Ungersorum, natural right wing. Are already kind of vying. They're, I guess, comfortable in that spot, and there's no kind of switching. So whoever could potentially get, I say stuck. I don't mean it as like a bad term
slotted
per
in,
se.
yes.
Yeah, slotted in. Whoever gets kind of slotted into that spot, I think, is gonna have. I mean, there's maybe a few adjustment issues to be ironed out, but other than that, I don't see it being a huge issue either way.
No, it'll be interesting to see what happens at camp. Maybe no one breaks out and we just sign someone else to come in.
Maybe this conversation is for naught.
Who knows? Yeah, there could be some UFA who's still available. There's not a lot of them.
Mm-mm.
Or there's a potential trade that we're still. Who knows what's going to happen? Because I mean, apparently, from what Don Waddell he cheekily said, there might be a trade with the Carolina Hurricanes and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Which
Don. You left. Leave us alone.
Bring us Patrick Laine for a couple draft picks. We'll be totally fine. Just got to retain a lot of salary.
Yeah.
But, let me know what you guys think in the comments on YouTube. Who, what type of deal do you think Seth Jarvis might get? And who would be your breakout player from camp of the prospects that could potentially make a move for a roster spot? So let me know what you think in the comments. Bailey, thank you so much for coming on Locked On Hurricanes. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Just being able to talk to you. Yeah, of course, being able to talk about Hurricanes and
like we don't do that already. I'm glad we have a different platform to do it on though.
Most definitely. Yeah. And I'm really excited to hear the Doug Wharf episode. Unfortunately, I couldn't make that one because I had to be at work, but
it's a good one. You will be if you like hearing about friendships with guys like Rod and Don and things like that and the business side of the Hurricanes, it's gonna, and not only that, but hearing a guy behind the scenes who has a fan outlook on things too. You're really gonna enjoy this episode.
Yeah. So after you listen to of course we're at the end. So after you listen to this podcast, make sure you go check out that other one as well.
And then go watch Locked On NHL.
Yes, make sure to go watch on Locked On NHL. But before we let you go, Bailey, where can people find you? And, of course, where can they find your podcast that you do?
That is also yours. So
not trying to break the fourth wall here, but yes.
Make it super quick. You can find me over on X at Bailey Curtis, and that is Bailey with 2 Y's. Find me over on Instagram at Bailey Lynn Curtis. If you're looking to find the SurgeCast, whether it be on X, Instagram, or YouTube, you can type up the SurgeCast. If you're on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an episode. We have link trees in all of our bios so you can find not only where to follow the hosts, but where to listen to our wonderful podcast. Again, the SurgeCast. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes, big thank you for that. And if you want to follow me, make sure to follow me on One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. If you go to my personal X account, there's a link tree in my bio where you can find all of my articles at the Hockey Writers.
You right?
Yes. The Carolina Hurricanes credentialed for season 2, get to run it back, being in the press box for the Hurricanes and to the Hockey Writers. Big shout out to Mark Sheik and everyone from over there and the Hurricanes for having their faith in me to do it again for a second time. Also, that's where you can check out my upcoming Chicago Wolves content. I did a Chicago Wolves preview earlier this summer. Definitely looking excited to do that as well, doing a little bit more prospect talks with the Chicago Wolves and all that. You can find the link tree to the SurgeCast. I do have links to all of that. For this podcast, make sure to go check out the link to where to listen on all podcast platforms. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating or review, because if you do, I might just read on the podcast. If you're on the YouTube side of things, make sure to hit subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up button. Let me know that you like the episode, because that'll help us get out there some more as well. Also, please make sure to share it to other fans as well, so they become everydayers just like you, because we are over 940 subscribers. If we get to 1,000, I might just do something special for you guys. So make sure to go do that. Like I said, in the comments, let me know what potential contract you see for Seth Jarvis. What's that prospect who might break out of camp, and all the good stuff. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hope everyone was a great Friday. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next week to talk more about Carolina Hurricanes and hopefully have some more better news, or just good news in general, and as we get another week closer to Carolina Hurricanes hockey. Big thank you to Bailey once again for joining me. I'm Zach, and as always, let's go Canes.